Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to today's Daf. Menachos Daf Lamites. We begin 5 lines from the top, back to the tzitzis. So as we learned yesterday, even if some of the strings snap, they shorten. The gardumin of tzitzis are still kosher, provided they still have a minimum length to them, as we learned yesterday. Now, what if the string snapped at the source, right off the garment? So instead of just shortening, it actually snapped all the way over here where it connects to the beged. So it's pretty much off the beged, but it's still wrapped around the rest. It's part of the bundle, so it's still hanging, technically connected to the beged, but it snapped mi'ikare, right at the source. Can that string still count? Amar Rabba, Barav Ada, Amar Rav Ada, Amar Rav, no, im nifsek achut, if the string snapped me'ikare at the top, Rashi says, me'ikare means hainu roish ha'mechubar latalis, where it connects back to the beged. Psula, that makes it possible. Yosef Rav Nachman ka'amar l'lashmata. So Rav Nachman was saying over this halacha, and he was confronted by Rava, Eisvei Rava, who asked the question to Rav Nachman from a brisa, where it seems that even this is okay. So the brisa begins, although there's a standard length requirement for the strings. That's only bitchila, so when you start, when it's fresh, when it's new. Aval soifai, but towards as it progresses and it rubs off, wears out, snaps off. Even if the original length is no longer present, it is okay. Shiara v'gardumav kolshu. So even if there's just a little bit left over, shiara v'gardumav, worn out, snap, even a little remnant is okay. Now we have 2 terms, shiarav and gardumav, apparently addressing different types of conditions, right? My shiarav or my gardumav, what are the brisa referred to with these 2 terms? Let's assume, let's assume shiarav means the ifsek minayu, ishtayar minayu. Shiarav is where there's some missing and some left. But gardumav means the gardume got totally snapped off, all the way at the source. Apparently that's also valid. No, Chadak Tony, the Brisa is speaking about the one very same case. Shiur of Gardum of Kolshu. If it got shortened, then it's okay. But if it got snapped at the source, it's not. Well, if the Brisa is simply referring to the same case, why use 2 terms to describe the same condition? But the Brisa should simply state Gardumov, and that's it. Shiarav Lamli, why the extra term, Shiarav? The answer is, no, we're talking about a shortened string, not a snapped at the source. Why the repetition? Hakamashman, the point of the Brisa is to teach that it can't be rubbed down to barely nothing. There needs to be some substantial shiur left, as we learned yesterday. Kamashman, the point of the Brisa is to add the word shiurav to indicate that in a shiura we need remnants, we need leftovers. Ligardumov, to this worn out, rubbed out string, what is the minimum length requirement? Kadela anvan, long enough that it can wrap around the other ones, as we learned yesterday. Okay, so if we have a shortened string, it can be okay as long as it has some minimal length to it. And according to Shita of Rav, if it nifsak mi'ikarai, if it got snapped at the source, it's possible. Yosef Rabba, now Rabba was sitting and saying, Amar Mishmeid Rav, again quoting Rav as follows. Chut shel krach oila min haminyan. The string which is used to wrap the others, right? Like the shamas, like the chazan in the shul, he's sort of serving and wrapping. It also counts as one of the 4. It counts into the minyan. Chut shel krach oila min haminyan. Okay, Amar Rav Yosef. Says Rav Yosef, Allah is correct, but it was attributed to Rav. It's really Shmuel who said it. Shmuel Amra, and not V'loi Rav. Okay, Itmanami Amra Baruchana Sachli. So he tells us that he had a conversation with Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Yashid ben Usha. He told me, and there's a girsa that adds the words Mishmei de Shmuel. That's the point, that he's also corroborating that it's really from Shmuel, who says Chut Shel Krach. This service thread, Oila Allah Min Aminin, counts as one of the four. So it can be counted into the number. Yosef Rava or Rabba, because Amar Mishmei de Shmuel, he was quoting Shmuel this time. Tcheles shekarach ruba kshera. Tcheles here just means the whole tzitzis, the whole set of strings. Sometimes the term tcheles, as Rashi, refers to the whole arrangement. So even if most of it had been wrapped, it's kosher. What's the point? So Rashi says, typically, as we're going to see later, the ideal is to have a third wrapped and 2/3 hanging loose. That's the way it looks nice and pretty. So even if it was wrapped more, mostly wrapped, all the way down, it's okay. Rav Chia Breder Rav Nosson Masnihoch, he had a different. Amar Le Rav Yosef. So again, Rav Yosef responds to him, and he says, you're attributing it to Shmuel, it's really Rav. So now you have to switch it. Rav Amra. Rav is one who says it below Shmuel. Itmar Nami. We learn likewise Amar Huna, Bar Huda, Amar Sheshet, Amar Rav. You remember Amar Rav, right? So it's from Rav, Tcheles shekarach ruba kshera. We have a slightly different version here. Rav Chia Breder Rav Nosson Masniach had a different version. Amar Huna, Amar Sheshet, Amar Rav Yirmiyah, Amar Rav. Tcheles shekarach ruba kshera. Okay, so he adds more halachos. First of all, even if it's mostly wrapped, it's okay. And at a minimum, even just one twirl is okay. Even, he didn't do much wrapping, just one set of wraps. Chuli is like one revolution, but actually it means 3. Rashi says, Hakafa Gimel Pam 3, encirclements. That's called a chulya achas. So at a minimum, that works. But the ideal, the nicest, the ideal is a third wrapping and 2/3 loose. Shlish is gedil, that's the braided, the wrapped portion, a third. Ushnei shlishei anaf, and 2/3 hanging loose. Like an anaf, like a branch off a tree, hangs loose off the tree. But at a minimum, we said a chulya works. V'kama shir chulya. How many revolutions is a chulya? Tanya, Rabbi Yirmiyah explains 3 times. Kadesh yichrech, wrap it once, v'yishana, a second, v'yishalash, a third. Tana. Now we learned in a brayso, hapeichas livchas misheva. When you make the chulyas, it should really be ideally 7 at a minimum. And the most, it should be 13. We actually do 7, and then we move up to 8. The next section is 11 and 13. And he explains the significance of these numbers. No less than 7, corresponding to 7 stratospheres, 7 skies. We know that by gazing at the tzitzis, one is meant to relate to the sky and to the Kisei HaKavod and to relate to Hashem and serving Hashem. So the number 7 symbolizes the essence of the tzitzis. But at a maximum, it should be 13, again corresponding to the sky arrangement. You have the 7 skies themselves and the 6 spaces between the skies for a total of 13. Now actually some Rishonim bring here that we do also 5, we do 4 sections of revolutions and 5 sets of knots. And the remez is that the tzitzis is meant to remind us of the Torah. In fact, it says that the tzitzis is shkula connected kol mitzvah. So the point is, because tzitzis, the word tzitzis in its numerical value, sad yud, saf is 600. I'm trying to get to 613. So we have the we have the 8, right? Of tzitzis, that's 600. We have the 8 threads, so it's 4 doubled over, so it's 8, 608. And then we have the 5 sets of knots, so it gets us from 608 to 613. Continues the Gemara. Tana said Brisa instructs us as follows. When you begin the wrapping, so assuming we have white strings and blue strings, so when you start wrapping, you wrap with the white. You start wrapping white, and then you switch over to blue, and then you come back to the white. Now, different ways of doing it, whether the Gemara means in every single set, or in general, you start white, move over to blue. Different ways of doing it, but in concept, it's white, and then up to blue, and then black to the white. When you begin doing those revolutions and wrappings, one is meant to begin with the white string and wrap with it. Why? Because that's how Menachos Torah speaks about the tzitzis being similar to the actual kanaf, the corner of the actual garment itself, which we learned yesterday is white. So that's the one you start with, because that's the one that the pasuk refers to first. Sign below, and then we move on to the blue string, and we use it to wrap. Then we come back to white, because malan b'kodesh you're meant to ascend, rise up in matters of kedusha. And since, as Rashi explains, the Torah first refers to the white, apparently that's chashuv. That's the more prominent, string. So you come back and conclude with the white. Rav. There was a story regarding Rav Chana, Yasva was sitting. A tzitzis story. Havaka Yuchaliv v'Azal. This man was walking, by them, and he was wearing an interesting pair of tzitzis. The Michsik Lima. He was wearing a glima, a garment, the Kulot Chalta, which was completely blue. Right? It's like Kairach's Beged, right? But it's only tzitzis. V'Ramle Chalta, and he had tzitzis. Okay, white strings and blue strings, but he had an original design. Ugdila Migdal was totally wrapped, totally braided. So instead of having wrapping and then loose, he had completely braided. Rav says, well, nice shirt, but bad tzitzis. Yoy Glima, the bag of the garment's pretty, but lo yoy Chalta, but its tzitzis wasn't properly arranged, wasn't properly executed. Because you need those loose hanging portion as well, as we're going to see in a minute. But Rab Chana, who was his counterpart, says, no. Amar, he says, Yoy Glima v'yoy Chalta, the garment's nice, and so are the tzitzis. Mike, immediately, what's the point of their disagreement? What are they talking? Rabbi Chana Savar, he held Ksiv Gdil, Ksiv Psil. The Torah relates to the tzitzis. Gdilim Taslacha, Gdilim, loose hanging strings. It also relates to it as Psil, Psil Tachet. So you have a choice in the matter. Either you can have it braided, wrapped, or you can have it hanging loose. It's up to you. So this fellow had it completely, braided. That's fine. Rav Savar, no. Rav disagrees. You need both. You need to have it hanging loose as well. And when the pasuk speaks about gedilim, it's coming to teach you the number of strings. Now, Teiz has a kasha. Why does the Gemara have to now sort of address what Rav does with gedilim? I mean, gedilim is meant to tell you that's meant to be partially braided. Teiz goes into the whole discussion about it. In any case, the Gemara teaches that the word gedilim, according to Rav, is coming to teach us the number of strings on the tzitzis. That it's meant to be 4 and then doubled over. How? Because the word gedilim is gdilim, right? So the word gdil on its own, in single, would automatically mean 2 strings. You can't braid without 2, right? Dilish knives. So you need 2. Gdilim extends it further, doubles it to 4. Arba. Asay gdil b'slei masaycha. You meant to take the gdil and have the psil hanging from it. So you have the part that's wrapped, braided, so to speak, and tied up. Then you have b'slei masaycha. From it comes the loose hanging strings that hang below. Amar Shmuel Mishmei Delevi. Now, we spoke about the tzitzis being comprised of white and blue. What are these strings made of? What material are the strings made of? And actually, a more basic question is, what type of garment requires tzitzis? Any material, or just perhaps wool or linen, which are primary materials, which are mentioned many times in the Torah? Here comes a machlokes, which has halachic ramification, halacha l'maisa. There's a cotton beged chayv and tzitzis, very important. Amar Shmuel Mishmei Delevi, quotes Levi, chutei tzemer, poitrin b'shal pishta. So, you have a pishtan shirt, a linen shirt, flax. You can have your tzitzis completely made of wool. It goes without saying that the blue has to be made of wool. That's techeles. By definition, it's blue wool. But even the white strings, we don't require linen strings to match the linen beged. Right, to let's say, avoid kalayim. No. Rashi explains, once we know from the Torah that the blue wool strings can address the linen shirt, you can add white strings which are wool as well. It goes along. It's one package, one system. Wool strings can address the linen beged, despite the mix of wool and linen. Chutei tzemer poitrim shel pishtim. Okay, so it's allowed and it actually fulfills the mitzvah. What about the other way around? The question was posed as follows: Shal pishtim mau shifter b'shal tzemer. Suppose, let's switch it around. He has a woolen garment, a woolen jacket. He'd like to use pishtan strings, linen strings, to white linen strings to be used as tzitzis for his wool jacket. Does that work? Perhaps yeah, perhaps not. What are the factors? So tzemer b'shel pishtim udapata, as we said a minute ago, woolen strings will address a pishtim garment, despite them being a mismatch. Why? So tzemer b'shel pishtim udapata, the given tcheles patra, since the blue woolen strings will address it, there's no other way. You need to have blue wool. Lavanami patar, so the white will also be valid in this case, because if the wool and blue work, so the wool and white work. It's one package, right? Because once wool can address it, so whether it's blue or white, it doesn't matter. Aval pishtim but tzemer loy. But in this case, where you have a tzemer, a woolen garment, who's to say you can use linen strings? Right? It's not the same type. It's not the same min. Right? The whole point is that the white sort of matches. It's min hakonaf, as we learned. It's the same type. But in this case, it's not. It's a mismatch. It's linen strings for a woolen garment. Right? So again, in the first case where it's a linen garment, inevitably you have to incorporate wool because of the tcheles. So that opens the door to wool, and even white wool is okay. Even if the white strings are wool, it's okay. But here, we don't find that linen can exempt wool. Or you can say it works. Why? On the one hand, the Torah says, don't mix wool and linen, right? Don't wear shatnas. But then we have an allowance for tzitzis. The point is, in any way, in any combination, woolen strings on a linen garment, linen strings on a woolen garment, that's okay. Whether it's wool on the linen or the opposite, it works. So which way is it? Tashma de Omar Rachab Omar Yehuda. We have a raya from the following halacha. Chutei tzemer poitrim shel pishtim. So just as the woolen strings can exempt the linen garment, v'shal pishtan, poitrim shel tzemer, likewise in the reverse. Linen strings can take care of the woolen garment. And the halacha continues. Chutei tzemer. Right. So basically, we concluded on this question. Right. The Torah allows any sort of combination. Any shatnez combination which is asur is by tzitzis, okay, and a fulfillment of the mitzvah. Okay. Halacha continues. Okay, so regarding the second question, what about the material of the garment itself? Which type of garment is now chayiv in tzitzis? Chutei tzemer pishtim poitrim b'chol makom. If you have wool or pishtim strings, they will exempt any type of beged. V'afilu b'shiroin, even a type of silk garment. which according to this seems like it's chayiv min ha-Torah, even though it's not a garment made of wool and linen, which are primary materials. Even a silk garment is chayiv min ha-Torah. And therefore it requires tzitzis. And not only does it require tzitzis, you can take a combination. You can make a tzitzis with strings of wool and linen together. You can have, let's say, blue wool and white linen strings and bunch them together and put them onto these shiroim. What do you mean? It's kalayim. You're combining wool and linen in the tzitzis itself. That's okay, because you're fulfilling mitzvah tzitzis. That overrides kalayim. So clearly, he's working with the opinion that any type of beged, even shiroin, even silk, is chayiv and tzitzis, and that opens the door. It allows for kalayim in fulfillment of mitzvah tzitzis. Upliged Rav Nachman. Now, Rabbi Yehuda's statement that even the beged made of other materials is chayiv and tzitzis min ha-Torah is in disagreement with Rav Nachman, who says it's not so. He says only a proper garment made of wool or linen is even chayiv and tzitzis. Damar Rav Nachman, hashiroin, these types of secondary materials, patur min ha-tzitzis. These garments are exempt from tzitzis. Now, if they're exempt from tzitzis, you can't allow. First of all, you don't need a tzitzis. Secondly, you can't allow installation of strings which have a kalayim issue amongst themselves, wool and strings together, and this type of beged would be us. Rav has a question to Rav Nachman Rav Brisa, which seems to say that all types of garments are chayiv and tzitzis, hashiroin v'akal chasrik, all types of like these silks and things, kol chayiv and tzitzis. They're all chayiv and tzitzis, and you tell me it's not. Midrabanan says the more really it's not chayiv and not only midrabanan. So you meant to have tzitzis, but be careful not to run into kalayim issues. Yochim seifa. Now, if it's only midrabanan, how do you explain the next part of the brisa of a kulon semer or pishtim poichin behen? The brisa clearly allows us to combine wool and linen strings and place them on a silk garment. Hold it. How could you do that? Yeah, if it's chayiv min ha-Torah, okay, so kalayim is okay by Kim mitzvah tzitzis min ha-Torah. I know the Mishnah Berurah Kalayim that explains why kalayim is allowed. According to Rav Nachman told me the Rabban, we can obligate you to put tzitzis, but we can't allow kalayim. Heichi Mishnah Berurah Kalayim. How could you allow kalayim? The answer is Eima oitzem ari pishtim. The brisa doesn't mean that you mix wool and linen strings and put it on the beged. No, you do one or the other on its own. I can prove to you that the meshi, that the shiroi and these silks are only chayiv in the rabbanon. Tani seifa. Brisa continues. That same brisa says like this: that if your tzitzis strings are made of primary materials like wool or linen, that can exempt any beged. So you put wool strings on a silk garment, it exempts it, even though it's not the same type, because wool and linen are primary materials and can exempt anything. But if you choose to hang, let's say, silk threads on your silk garment, so that works because silk and silk works, but if you choose to do silk on wool, it's not going to work. It doesn't have the power to address other materials other than itself. Tani Sefer, the Brisa continues, Hain, so these secondary materials like silk, B'min and Paitrin, if they're placed on a garment of the same material, the same min, then it's fine, Paitrin. Shloi B'min and Paitrin, but you can't place it on a different min. It's not going to work. So clearly the Brisa is allowing us to use even silk threads as tzitzis, at least on a silk garment. So if you agree with me that the silk garment is only obligated to mitzvah tzitzis midrabanan to begin with, that explains why you can use silk threads, which aren't really proper tzitzis, and put it on the silk garment that is a fulfillment of the rabbinic requirement that it should, it should resemble tzitzis. It should look like tzitzis. It should, right? But if secondary material garments are chayiv ben tzitzis not Torah, so how could you use silk threads? Right, the Torah, in speaking about tzitzis, speaks about wool and linen, as we had before, right? Pasuk speaks about tzemer pishtim and then gedilim. So tzemer the pishtim with the potter. Only proper wool or linen threads can be considered tzitzis, but not silk threads. So this proves my point that really these silk garments, to begin with, only chayiv d'Rabbanan, and Rabbanan allowed you to use any type of silk threads which at least match those materials to exempt them from tzitzis. So now the Gemara, you know what? Imasham hola area. The Gemara responds, this wouldn't necessarily prove the point. You can still argue that garments made of secondary materials are chayiv and Torah. So the question was, how could you hang less than ideal threads and exempt them from tzitzis? The answer is, the Torah makes for two systems. You're right. Wool and linen is primary. That's top of the line. If you have those threads, you can hang them on any type of tzitzis, any type of garment. Wool, linen, silk. But silk strings, which are secondary materials, although they cannot really accommodate a garment made of primary materials like wool or linen, but they can address and exempt and accommodate a garment made of materials such as theirs. Right, so it's two different systems in tzitzis. You have one track, the wool linen track, and you have the secondary material track. And they can both be Minat Torah. Because the Rav, as Rav explained, the Rav presented an apparent contradiction in the Pesukim in terms of the composition of the tzitzis strings. What material are they? The Rav, Ksiv HaKanaf Min Kanaf. First the Pasuk speaks about the tzitzis matching the Min Kanaf type of material of the actual garment, silk, etc. Uksiv Tzemer Pishtim. Then we have the other pasuk which singles out Tzemer Pishtim. So which ones are the strings meant to be made of? Okay, so how do you work this out? Depends on your garment. Tzemer Pishtim, Poitrin, Bein B'minan, V'mishlei B'minan. If you want to use top of the line, primary material tzitzis strings, wool, linen, you know what? You're good to go. It's universal. You can apply it to any type of material. Whether it's the actual min of the string, wool, linen, whether it's a silk, whether it's shar minan, but other types of strings, tzitzis made of silk, doesn't have the same ability. It can address, but in a limited sense. It can only address something which is of the same material. Minan poitrin, but it has to be min hakanaf, the same type, yeah. So silk on silk works. Shaloi b'min poitrin, but can't address a different type of material. It has a limited scope, but it can still exempt its type minat Torah. Okay, so now we're sort of shifting that really all begadim are chayiv minat Torah in terms of what type of tzitzis to use. Well, depends what you're using. If you choose Tzemer Pishtim, that works everywhere. But if you choose different types, that has to match the bag. But Rav Nachman is of the opinion that only a baguette comprised of primary material is chayiv minat Torah, otherwise only Rabbana for Rav Nachman. He responds, because the Talmud Bavli is going like this, Brisa. Talmud Bavli, we find throughout the Torah the term begadim used very often. What is the baguette comprised of? Unspecified, but we find one place that Torah does define it for us. In one situation, Torah says that it's Tzemer Pishtim. Rashi brings by Kalayim, by Negoyim. So once we find that Torah explained itself, that a beged really means Tzemer Pishtim, we learn that generally the term beged is a reference to a garment made of wool or linen only. I've called Tzemer Pishtim. So likewise by tzitzis, where we have the term beged used, only a beged of wool or linen is chayiv and tzitzis, as per Rav Nachman's shita. Other begadim only chayiv and Rabbanan. Amar Abaye says, Abaye, one last point. Really, within Rabbi Shmuel, we seem to have an inconsistency. V'haitana, the Rabbi Shmuel, the following quote, the Brisa, which was presented in the Beis HaMedrash of Rabbi Shmuel, Mapka will oppose Me'idach Tana to Rabbi Shmuel from the other Brisa. So we seem to have a contradiction within Rabbi Shmuel itself, whether or not a garment made of materials other than Tzemar Pishta are chayiv. Then Rabbi Shmuel, Beged. So he's talking about the pasuk which speaks about the Beged becoming tamei through a nega. So we have the lashon Beged. Ainli ala Beged Tzemer. Right? It says Beged Tzemer there. Maybe only wool. M'nai l'rabbis Tzemer Gmal. What about Tzemer coming off camels, not sheep? Tzemer Arnavim, or from the rabbits, v'noitza shel izim, the goats here. V'akolach v'asrik mashur, and all types of silk. Nine. Are they also susceptible to tumah of negaim? Talmud leimar. In order to address all those materials, the Torah continues and says, Oi v'beged pishtim, expanding it to other materials as well. So clearly, according to this version of Rabbi Shmuel, the term beged is not limited to Tzemar Pishtim. It covers all begadim. And assumingly, likewise by tzitzis. Even a garment comprised of materials other than the primary materials. Even silk would be chayiv and tzitzis b'nater. Okay, interesting machlekes. So according to one approach, the beged of tzitzis is limited to Tzemar Pishtim. Only that is chayiv b'nater. Other begadim are chayiv midrabanan. According to the second approach, all begadim are chayiv b'nater, but as Rava pointed out, even if you're chayiv b'nater, what type of strings are you going to use? So Tzemar Pishtim strings can address any beged. But if it's other materials, strings of other materials can only address if the garment is comprised of the same material and matches theirs. Halach l'maisa, the Rambam Shulchan Aruch paskin that only a wool or linen garment is chayiv and tzitzis min haTorah, otherwise midrabanan. The Rambam paskins that it's chayiv min haTorah, even cotton, all that. So that explains why some people are mahader to wear wool tzitzis to address the shita that only that is chayiv min haTorah. Others specifically wear cotton, like they say the Chazon Ish, Chaim Kanievsky. They say the reason is to actually highlight the sheet of the Ramah that no, there doesn't need to be Tzemar Pishtim b'chayiv and tzitzis, even other materials such as cotton chayiv and tzitzis. Okay, let's just recap the beginning of today's daf as well. Remnants, gardumim, leftovers, shortened strings are okay, provided they have a minimum shear, kedei la'anvan. But if it's nifsak mikara, if it's snipped at the source, it's pasul. Ideally, it should be braided 1/3 and 2/3 hanging loose. How many strings do we need? 4 that are inserted and doubled into doubled over. Then we got to the discussion about kalayim b'tzitzis, which is mutter. What materials are the strings meant to be made of, and what type of garment is chayiv and tzitzis. All the best to you, and that's Lacha Rabbah.